You're standing in line at the coffee shop, and your phone is already in your hand. You didn't decide to take it out. You didn't even notice yourself doing it. And now you're staring at a screen you unlocked without thinking, scrolling through nothing in particular, wondering how you got here. This isn't about willpower. It's not about self-control or discipline or some moral weakness you need to fix. This is about something deeper, something most people never stop to examine. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start with what actually happens. You sit down at your desk to work. Within minutes, maybe seconds, your hand drifts toward your phone. You check it. Nothing important. You put it down. 5 minutes later, you check again. Same result. But you keep doing it, over and over, even when you know there's nothing there. The common explanation is distraction. We tell ourselves we're easily distracted, that we lack focus, that we just need to try harder. But that explanation falls apart the moment you examine what's actually happening, because distraction implies you were pulled away from something. But what if you were never fully there to begin with? Research into habit formation and behavioral psychology reveals something uncomfortable. Your brain isn't designed to sustain focused attention on a single task for hours at a time. It's designed to scan for threats, opportunities, and changes in your environment. And in the modern world, your phone has become the most efficient way to satisfy that scanning impulse. Every time you check your phone, you're not being weak. You're completing a loop your brain has learned to crave. The action itself, the unlock, the swipe, the brief flood of possibility, triggers a small release of dopamine. Not from what you find, from the act of checking. Your brain has learned that the check itself is the reward. This is why it doesn't matter if there's nothing new. The behavior isn't about the content. It's about the pattern. Your brain has associated the physical act of reaching for your phone with relief from an uncomfortable internal state. Boredom, uncertainty, the slight anxiety of facing a blank document or a difficult task. Think about what happens right before you check. You're sitting at your computer, staring at a paragraph you need to write. There's a moment of resistance, a tiny spike of discomfort. And in that moment, before you even register the feeling, your hand moves. You've outsourced the resolution of that discomfort to a device. This happens dozens of times a day. You're waiting for the elevator. You check. You're walking to the bathroom. You check. You're watching television, something you chose to watch, and during a slow scene, you check. The behavior has become so automatic that it bypasses conscious decision-making entirely. The disturbing part isn't that you do it. The disturbing part is that you do it when you don't want to. You've told yourself you won't check your phone during dinner. You check anyway. You've left it in another room. You go get it. The intention is there, but the behavior happens regardless. What's happening is a form of learned automaticity. Your brain has practiced this sequence so many times that it's become a default response to almost any moment of uncertainty or discomfort. The trigger isn't the phone. The trigger is the feeling, and the feeling is nearly constant. Consider your typical workday. You open your email. There's an uncomfortable message. Before you respond, you check your phone. You're in a meeting that's running long. You check under the table. You finish a task and face the brief emptiness of not knowing what to do next. You check. The pattern is always the same. Discomfort appears. Phone provides escape. But here's what makes this particularly insidious. The escape doesn't resolve anything. You check your phone, you feel a moment of relief, and then you return to the same situation. Except now you've reinforced the loop. Your brain has learned that when discomfort appears, checking your phone makes it go away, even if only for seconds. The cycle deepens every time it repeats. Each check strengthens the neural pathway. Each momentary relief teaches your brain that this is the solution. And because the relief is real, even if temporary, your brain prioritizes this pattern over almost anything else. This is different from addiction in the clinical sense. You're not dependent on your phone the way someone might be dependent on a substance. You're dependent on the escape pattern. The phone is just the most convenient tool. If it didn't exist, your brain would find something else. It always has. Think about people before smartphones existed. They drummed their fingers on desks. They doodled in margins. They stared out windows. They found newspapers to flip through, magazines to browse, anything to fill the small gaps between focused moments. The human need to escape micro-discomforts isn't new. The efficiency of the escape is what's changed. Research into behavioral patterns shows that humans have always sought escape from discomfort. We daydream, we fidget, we find ways to defer difficult feelings. The phone hasn't created this impulse, it's just made it frictionless. You don't have to daydream anymore, you can simply unlock a screen. And the screen delivers. It gives you something new every single time, or at least the possibility of something new. Even when there's nothing there, the act of checking provides the sensation of having done something. Your brain registers this as progress, as action, as movement away from stillness. The reason you keep checking without meaning to is that meaning to isn't part of the equation anymore. The behavior has been practiced so many times that it lives in a part of your brain that doesn't consult your intentions. It's the same part that lets you drive home on autopilot or tie your shoes without thinking. This is the part of your brain that runs on pattern recognition and prediction. It notices that certain situations lead to certain feelings, and certain actions make those feelings go away. After enough repetitions, it just runs the program without asking permission. You become a passenger in your own behavior, and this is where it gets uncomfortable. If the behavior is automatic, if it's driven by patterns your brain has learned over thousands of repetitions, then simply deciding to stop doesn't work. You've already decided to stop, many times. But the decision lives in one part of your brain, and the behavior lives in another. You're not failing when you check your phone after promising yourself you wouldn't. You're experiencing the gap between intention and automation. Your conscious mind sets a rule. Your automatic systems, running in the background, follow the pattern they've always followed. And the pattern wins because it's faster and older and doesn't require thought. The automatic system doesn't care about your goals or your values or what you promised yourself this morning. It only cares about what worked yesterday and the day before and the 1,000 days before that. And checking your phone worked. It provided relief. So it runs the same program again. This doesn't mean you're powerless, but it does mean the usual strategies, the ones based on willpower and self-control, are fighting the wrong battle. You can't discipline your way out of an automatic behavior. You can only disrupt the pattern or replace it with something else. But even that's not advice. That's just the reality of how these systems work. The point here isn't to fix anything. The point is to see what's actually happening. Because most people go through life thinking they're weak or distracted or broken. And they're not. They're just human. And humans automate behaviors that get practiced repeatedly. The real question isn't why you keep checking your phone. The real question is what you're trying not to feel when you do. Because the checking is never really about the phone. It's about the moment before the check, the silence, the uncertainty, the brief exposure to whatever thought or feeling you were about to have. Your brain has learned to interrupt that moment before it fully forms. The discomfort appears, and the hand moves, and the discomfort dissolves before you even register what it was. This happens so quickly that you rarely see the full sequence. You only notice the checking. You miss the trigger entirely. The next time you reach for your phone without meaning to, notice what came right before it. Not the external trigger, the internal one. The tiny discomfort, the brief uncertainty, the moment of not knowing what comes next. That's the real pattern. The phone is just the response. You're not checking your phone because you're addicted to it. You're checking because your brain learned that checking resolves a feeling you don't want to sit with. And until you see that clearly, the behavior will keep running in the background, invisible and automatic, exactly like it always has. This is what's happening every time your hand moves without permission. Not weakness, not failure, just a very old system doing what it was trained to do. And now that you see it, the question becomes whether you want to keep training it the same way.